1994, 1995, with the commercialization of the internet browser, through 2025, we're going to build a digital or virtual economy at the same scale. It may be off a little bit in the years, but I think it's directionally correct. And we're starting to see this underway. In fact, we've seen this pattern before. In the industrial economy, the second industrial revolution, there was this burst of technical innovation in 1870 through about 1914. And think about it, it was very concentrated. It was concentrated geographically. If you look at the United States, if you draw a straight line from New York through Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, it really happened in that area, and the wealth was highly concentrated. There were related industries that drove this, and massive personal wealth creation. In fact, look at this. From Carnegie through Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, J.P. Morgan, Henry Ford. In fact, 4 of those people at one point in their lives was the richest human on earth. So incredible wealth creation and wealth concentration as we went through that initial period. But something more interesting happened after that that we don't talk enough about. And it was the great industrial build-out from 1915 to 2000. And it changed the way we lived. It changed the way we communicated, the way we entertained ourselves, the way we transported. In fact, look at those ambassadors. One thing, a photo with an ambassador, that could be 1958, it could be 1998, you never know. But commercial air travel, how we would ship things, transport, so forth and so on. Here's the main point of it. Where it was concentrated at the beginning, it had a great flattening. It became highly fragmented. All around the world, industry after industry. It created entirely new industries as industrialization went into every corner of every industry around the globe. And it actually, instead of the wealth being concentrated, the wealth became widely distributed. We created a massive middle class, particularly in the G7 countries. And it created charts like this. Look at the GDP of these countries once they started to industrialize. Why do I bring this up? It's starting to happen again. We've had this burst of technical innovation from 1985 through 2015. That 30-year window where, again, it was highly concentrated in places like Silicon Valley and Bangalore. It was selected related industries in all of these segments that we know very well. And there was massive personal wealth creation with faces like these, many of whom became some of the wealthiest people on Earth. But I think we're about to embark upon the great digital build-out, and that's what this conference is all about. I think why it's so germane. That it's going to change the way we travel, the way we get around. If you were at the Consumer Electronics Show a couple weeks ago, it was all about the instrumented car and what's happening on that front. The way healthcare is conducted. I think we're going to look back from 2030 to today and say, wow, healthcare was pretty primitive before it digitized. The same is going to be true with money and banking, how we entertain ourselves, the role of government in our societies, and how we live on a daily basis. And so where it's been concentrated, we're going to see the same thing. It's going to be very fragmented. It's going to go into every corner of every industry. We have only just begun this journey. We can talk about the Amazons and the Googles and the Pandoras all we want. But as Jeremy was describing, when you go into the global 2,000 corporations, they have only just begun this process of digitization. There is a lot of work for all of us to do, and I think it's going to create, there's going to be massive job creation. And so when you look at what NASSCOM has participated in, and everybody in this room has 3.5 million jobs in this industry in India alone, I think it's just the beginning. Because you look at what has to occur. View it from this perspective. The U.S. GDP at 17.6 trillion. There are multiple estimates that the digital portion of the U.S. economy is already up to 5%. It's probably going to go to 25% plus. It simply has to. When you look at the banking sector, we talk to insurance firms where they want to instrument everything. They want to instrument your home, your small business, your automobile, and you one-to-one insurance based on actually how you live and how you run your company or how you drive your car, as opposed to just being part of a demographic. We're starting to see that with education, with the role of government, with the role of healthcare, and so it's going to happen again and again and again. And if you look at this, in fact, Boston Consulting Group already did an estimate that next year, in the G20 alone, the GDP, the digital GDP, is going to be 4.2 trillion. To put that in context, That's greater than Germany's economy and just smaller than Japan's. And so that's how much digital is going on, but it's just about to accelerate. So the question is, we know the G7, but who's going to become the D7? And I think that India is in pole position, absolutely, to be probably number 1 or 2 on that list. But these things don't happen by accident. And it requires a lot of great work, but I think the opportunity is clearly there to have leadership in the D7. We're short on time, so I'm going to skip a few slides, but I just want to finish up what this means to services first. I talked about this a bit last year, but it requires a whole new set of competencies to build the digital experience. So unfortunately, I'm just going to wrap up with a couple of charts here. The first is on digital strategy. That we need to help our clients reconceptualize their businesses. In these more traditional industries, they've been doing things the same way for decades, if not longer in some cases. And so suddenly, within a 2 to 3 year window, they need to completely rethink what is their industry structure, what is their company structure, how do they generate value, and how do they get from point A to point B. And so digital strategy is exceedingly important from a services perspective. Secondly, as Jeremy was describing, the IT organization. What is the foundational technology which is necessary? It's certainly around SMAC. It's around creating that whole architecture. Digital security is vitally important. On a monthly basis, we're getting ugly reminders about digital security. And so this is an area around building foundational technologies that every company needs to move quickly on. A third area is design. And this isn't small d design. It's not creating interfaces for mobile phones or for tablets, but it's actually capital D design, reconceptualizing business processes, how to interface with the customer. For example, we have a lot of retail banks that are saying, what is the role of the branch, and how do I completely re-architect the branch for a digital future? That's the type of work that needs to be conducted. And then finally, we're seeing data and analytics. So data science and artificial intelligence is going to sit at the core of this. We think algorithms are forever. Lots of different portions of a digital business can be replicated, but the algorithms are proprietary. They're what make the engine hum, and so we think that that's something which is obviously very important. So, since we had a late start, I'm going to probably stop here. In fact, I just want to leave one final idea, which is this. That Socrates had this wonderful quote where he said, an unexamined life is not worth living. I think if you were living today, you would probably update that quote. You'd probably say something like this, that an uninstrumented life is probably not worth living. I know, you may think that's quite a little bit ridiculous, but were you living today, I'm sure you'd be working for Google, or Apple, or Cognizant, or TCS, or a firm like that. I mean, after all, you probably would be. I mean, the big 3 philosophy firms are not hiring right now, so I'm sure that's probably where we would be. So let me wrap up there. But in this world where we're going to have 50 billion devices and 50 times the data, these are the competencies which are going to be necessary for services firms to lead our more traditional clients into this new world of digital. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Malcolm. I think you found Jeff in